probably could cause them to go until January 1, where they're finally have exhausted everything. When I say January 1, it could be January 5 or something like that. What if there's not much in there? And it's possible. It's possible the SEC would fight this much just because they don't want precedent. But if there really wasn't something in there very useful for Ripple, why wouldn't they have turned it over under the protective order? Ripple's not allowed to comment what's in it. Brad Garlinghouse, Chris Larson, none of them are allowed to ever comment what's in it.
In today's video, attorney John Deaton discussed the latest with the SEC Ripple XRP lawsuit, the recent summary judgments from Ripple and the SEC, and what's next for the procedural process, likelihood of a settlement soon. Before listening to him, please ensure to smash the like button and subscribe to the channel.
I think, unfortunately, Charles doesn't know me. I'm assuming, nor should he. He doesn't know all that effort. And, maybe he's confusing me with these trolls on internet who say to him, hey, dig up information on him. That's not us. That's not the entire XRP community. I don't stand for that. And so it's like the bizarro world for me to face that. And so the last thing I'll say on it, guys, is let me make this clear. I want everyone to understand that there is no conspiracy. Okay. This is a fact. A year ago on your show, even though I could have, and I'll explain why, I did not say, I said, listen, guys, I'm not going to go as far as to say Bill Hinman violated the law. I don't know if you remember that, but I was very hesitant. Why? Yeah. Because it's a man's character. It's a man's reputation. He's got children, grandchildren. You don't want to just be reckless about that. But I could have. You want to know why? The financial conflict laws don't require specific intent. If you allow even what's called an appearance of impropriety, you are in violation of the statute, right? You can't say, well, I didn't know. It's the same thing that you all heard, that ignorance of the law is not a defense. How many crypto lawyers or securities lawyers have said Ripple's fair notice defense is weak because you can't use, well, I didn't know the law as a defense? So it's the same kind of concept, even the appearance of impropriety. So even if Bill Hinman didn't know, he'd be in violation. But I didn't say it. When Empower got those emails, and he specifically told by the ethics division of the SEC, you are financially barred. You are criminally barred, Bill. You can't email, you can't call, you can't meet, you can't do any of those things. And he's told that. And we can prove through his own words in his own emails that he met 3 more times at minimum, and he joked about it and he laughed about it, and they made all kinds of jokes about this conflict that he knew about. You are in violation. So let me make it clear to everyone in the world, and Bill Hinman, if you listen, sue me if you think I'm saying something that you can prove wrong. Bill Hinman violated the criminal conflict financial laws of the United States of America and likely violated Title V of the U.S. Code. Period. It is a fact. It is not an opinion. I think I know what Charles was saying. And I think that if I'm accurate and I know what he was trying to say, I agree with him. I think what he was trying to say when he says, quote, it just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I think he was trying to say that the conflict issue or the corruption issue doesn't matter as it relates to the Ripple case, right? And that's true. I agree with that comment that even if there was a bribe, and this is why I said it's bizarre. I used to say this a year ago. Even if there was a bribe, it doesn't change whether or not XRP is a security or not a security. It's just frustrating. And I was really looking forward to having a civil discussion with him because we're really on the same team, right? When we're talking about government overreach. So that's why that last tweet where I said, Charles, this is why people called you out, because immediately, some publication, online publication is saying Cardano founder says, XRP, the Hinman thing's a grand conspiracy. And while we're trying to get Congress members to make an inquiry and support the IG investigation, right, they could come back and say, hey, Charles Hodgson says that this is nothing to look at, John. I said that, listen, we haven't seen the SEC brief yet. We haven't seen all the evidence yet. And I actually predicted that the SEC would have a couple gems against Ripple. And I said it may be a couple bad days of publicity for Ripple. I don't know if you remember me saying that. I said, but, we haven't seen all the evidence, and there's got to be more that I'm missing. Now, that was an assumption I was making, like, this can't be it. And then I read the summary judgment, and I said, holy shit, there's nothing there. Like, there's no more egregious conduct behind the scenes. There was, it was, well, here's an email. Of course, no XRP holder would be privy to this stuff. Here's an email where Chris Larson said, I love it, because an employee said, hey, XRP holders like something, right? Or this or that. Well, none of that stuff is out there. All that complaint says, guys, is that Ripple promoted the shit out of Ripple, and Ripple promoted XRP. That's it. That's the case. And they want the judge to assume that all that promotion was successful, and that we listened to that promotion, and we then were led to view XRP as an investment because of Ripple and because of what they're going to do. But they don't make that connection. If you remember, it was the connection that they were going to make was an expert. I'm not going to name his name, all right? And I don't want you guys to either, please. But expert number one, the guy that, like, I filed the amicus brief, the application to be heard of, and they responded to throw me off the case because I named his name, and then they threw all those old main tweets of mine. Remember all that crap? So. Oh, yeah. That was their expert. Like, he was going to be, or she was going to be, the person who said XRP holders had to rely on this because there's no, non-investment use for XRP available, or there's this or that. Well, to my surprise, the SEC did not rely on any expert. They didn't rely on the price appreciation expert. They didn't rely on expert number one, who I was most interested in. So they don't have that connection. Instead, they have, look at all this promotion. But even all that promotion, guys, isn't that much. Like, one of the things I'm going to address in the amicus brief, and to all the people out there like, John, don't give them an insight. I mean, listen, it's going to be filed in a couple of weeks, so I'm not letting the cat out of the bag. But they make a big deal that look, at one point, Ripple showed you how to buy XRP on their website. Okay, guess who else did that? You guys know?
CNBC.
It's the NBC. They ran videos of it.
Yeah.
They had written articles of it, and they had videos of it.
It was a big deal. Oh, yeah.
So I'm just saying to you is, so just an XRP purchaser, if they were viewing it as an investment, they may have gotten it from Brian Kelly from Fast Money, who said, by the way, XRP is not a security, while he said it.
That's right.
So I'm just saying is that's the I just don't see, how the judge could make that underlying, connection that somehow we did it. Plus, obviously all the non-investment uses of XRP, and we're going to address that. We're going to address how, I don't know if you've seen the tutorials on the XRP ledger. There's tutorials on how to code. Like a moron like me could learn how to code, man. I mean, can you imagine? They're taking advantage of two things. They're taking advantage of every delay lever that they can pull, but they're also taking advantage that, to be honest, Ripple hasn't been super aggressive about it, right? If I had one criticism, and I really don't, but if I had to come up with one, it would be how collegial. They're so collegial. I mean, I was listening to, when I was at the hearing, the oral argument, even, Matthew Solomon, who is a much smarter guy than me, but he's like, Your Honor, I hate to point out the inconsistencies of the SEC's, statements. And I'm like pounding the table like, Judge, they're lying. Like, right? How many times they could come in court and change the story? Like, that's how I'd say it. But they're very professional, very collegial. And so Like what happens when I get an order from a judge, I then ask the judge for a 10-day order. Like I say, 10 days or 30 days. Judge says these documents are relevant, turn them over to Deaton, right? And so then I actually present the judge with a 30-day order that the case be dismissed. It's a conditional dismissal unless they turn them over. Ripple could have also possibly said, and there's that Australian guy, Bill, I forget his last name, he's really bright, our attorney in the XRP community, so he should be given credit for pointing this out as well, was that Ripple didn't say, listen, we need to deal with the attorney-client privilege, the deliberative process privilege, all of that at one time, right? So they got to argue deliberative process, then they got to do the motion to reconsider, then they lost the motion to reconsider, and she said order them, and then they said, well, we got to do the attorney work privilege, attorney-client privilege now, and so it was allowing them on a step-by-step, and so I think Ripple could have been a little more aggressive, but the bottom line is, you know, they have 14 days from the day Judge Torres ordered it to file a motion for reconsideration. That's what I anticipate. I anticipate that they're going to file that motion. Ripple would then have 14 days to answer. I'm assuming Ripple would answer it within 7 days, right? Like they anticipate this, they should have it ready to keep that clock from ticking. And then the judge denies it. Then they could say, Judge, we want you to certify this appeal to the Second Circuit on the discovery issue, and she'll turn that down. And then finally, believe it or not, they could do what I did on that thing called a writ of mandamus, where they go to the Second Circuit saying, basically force Judge Torres to do her job correctly, right? If they pulled all those levers, they would probably run out of time at the end of this year, right? It probably could cause them to go until January 1, where they're finally have exhausted everything. When I say January 1, it could be January 5 or something like that. But where they exhaust everything, and then the judge says, order it now. Now, I have a question or an issue, which is I have to believe there's stuff in there, because a lot of people on Twitter is like, hey, John, what if there's not much in there? And it's possible. It's possible the SEC would fight this much just because they don't want precedent. But if there really wasn't something in there very useful for Ripple, why wouldn't they have turned it over under the protective order? Ripple's not allowed to comment what's in it. Brad Garlinghouse, Chris Larson, none of them are allowed to ever comment what's in it. And it never gets, they could have done that privately, right? It would have never been public. And so I can only assume, and it's speculation, that there's something in there, most likely people talking about XRP in that email chain. Like, hey, if you're giving an ETH pass, why not XRP? You know, there's somebody making that argument along the way, and they don't want Ripple to be able to serve that up. That if the enforcement lawyers were debating whether or not XRP is a security or not a security, then how the hell would Ripple know that they are in fact? Why would Brad or Chris, how could they ever be reckless? The judge dismissing this, or why isn't the judge doing that? Ripple's not asking. Right? If Ripple doesn't ask, the judge isn't going to say, okay, let me just say this is enough. So Ripple's not asking for any of that. And so we're playing the delay game. I think that if there's going to be a settlement, it will only be because they run out of time. It's the middle of January. They have to turn over those documents, or, you know, the judge is going to just grant a victory for Ripple, right? They were willing to settle, and it would be status quo, right? There would be it would be like, here, these early sales were securities. Here's, $20 million or whatever, and nothing about XRP. There would be no declaration similar to the Bill Hinman ETH speech. But in order to do what you're saying, Chip, in essence, the SEC would have to sort of do the Hinman speech, wouldn't they? They'd have to stipulate that ongoing and future sales of XRP are not securities. And the SEC will never do that, right? Because, first of all, any commodity can be packaged and marketed and sold as a security. So I can package Bitcoin today in a certain way, and it's a security in that limited situation. And so they're never going to like give this huge declaratory statement that XRP will never be a security. And so, but also, how does Gary Gensler go after other cryptos if he admits that XRP is not a security? I'm just saying, how do you do that?
Done.
I don't think you can.
How do you settle with Ripple, say ongoing and future sales of XRP are not a security, and then turn around and say ETH, Cardano, Algo, XLM, or whatever else, you are a security, because they're going to be like, we're just like Ripple. We're just like, same thing you claimed about against Ripple, Stellar could use. And so it puts them in a fine box. It can be done, but that's why I was saying it's like trying to thread the needle. It's very difficult to do.